Boom, we are live. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Phase 1 podcast. Spending some quality time today with Justin McCARTNEY. A little background on him and I. We got connected via social media post the conversation I had with Manny a few weeks ago. So algorithm doing his thing, as always. And we got connected, had a one-on-one meeting a few weeks back. And here we are today. We're going to do what we always do. And for those of you just tuning in for the first time, how we go about the conversation in this podcast, we stick to three specific themes. Number one is individual stories. And the reason we do that is because we're having a conversation with one another, Justin and I, but for those listening, maybe you can relate to our individual stories. And hopefully that encourages you to tune in a little bit more because what I've gone through in my life, maybe those of you listening may not be able to relate entirely with. So hopefully you can relate with Justin and everything that he's gone through in his life that ultimately has brought him to where he's at right now. And that brings us to our individual mission. So he's going to share his mission with all of you. And then we're going to wrap this conversation up with words of encouragement. That's our message that we want to give to you. So thank you for tuning in. And Justin, I appreciate you spending a little bit of life with me, chalking out a few hours of your very busy schedule to have a conversation with a guy that you just met a few weeks ago. So thank you so much for being here. And we're going to get right into it, man. We're going to keep it raw. We're going to keep it real. And yeah, so here we are. I've got coffee ready to go and water. Yep. I've been doing a lot of running the last few weeks, and I just don't think I've been drinking enough water. I've got all the other things, electrolytes, all the things, but I'm looking at this full thing of just pure water. And that's going to be my goal today, is to actually just drink straight up water. So, yeah. Cool, man. Well, thank you again for spending some life with me. So I'm going to take a step back and listen as you willingly share your story with us. And I understand that's a big ask. I do. I know that it can be challenging to share your story because it's a lot of years of life filled with ups and downs. But our story has forged us to getting us on the path that we're on right now, which is our mission. So I appreciate you spending time with me again and sharing your story with us. So, yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate you having me on. Yeah, it's going to be awesome talking through a bunch of different things. I'll try to be clear and concise, as you mentioned. Obviously, there's a ton of peaks and valleys throughout the years, but yeah. So I am a tactical athlete myself. I am in the Air National Guard. Was full-time, recently got out of that, the full-time gig. And now I'm really coaching tactical athletes. So I work with police, military, firefighters, so on and so forth. How I got there, it's, in the beginning, it was a pretty quote unquote traditional path. So growing up was always in sports, always, the being athletic with certain things. And then it kind of got to a point where I was like, all right, the traditional path, a lot of people just go to school. So studying criminal justice at school, and I'm not using my degree. So if you are thinking about going to school, make sure you think it through. But was there, and I think that's when the big, I would say, pivotal moment happened. So I lost my dad to cancer. He was pretty sick. And it really, in the moment ripped me up, right? So beat me down physically and mentally. That's kind of where I got into actually training, we'll say, not just working out and going through the motions like a lot of us do in the beginning. So that's when I started training and really kind of finding my purpose, my vision with everything. And I will say, like, it wasn't always, a smooth process. I would kind of use it as my outlet, and I would usually end up physically or mentally just beating the crap out of myself. So that's, it was, something that was positive, but unfortunately I used to kind of turn it into a negative aspect. It wasn't until a point when I really started getting, coaches, getting teammates, and understanding like the actual vision when it comes to human performance, improving from both a physical and mental capacity there. So that's when it really started changing to me, leading me to my vision, which now is pray or worst it doesn't happen, train like it will, right?
Mhm.
So that is the big kind of pivotal moment for me. And now it's all about, okay, how can we mentally prepare better? How can we physically prepare better for that worst day so we can figure out how to endure it? So that's where I'm at now. I kept it kind of top level there, but I think from a big picture perspective, that's the mission now, and that's how I got here so far.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that. I can imagine that it was challenging and really tough to lose your dad, the way that it happened. So thank you for sharing that with me. And how do you carry on your dad's legacy?
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's all about understanding that things are going to scare you when it comes to whether they're physical endeavors, whether it's expanding your comfort zone. And I think it's everybody says life's short, and it's almost to the point where it's a little cliche, but when you have an event or something like that happen to you, it's like, oh wow, like I need to execute. I need to detach from the outcomes of certain things and just make sure that I'm truly leaving my impact with certain things.
Mm.
So it's kind of been the forcing mechanism for me to leave my unit full time. And it's like, all right, you know what? I'm gonna bet on myself. My wife and I are gonna move. We moved to Texas, and it's like, let's just figure it out. And I've never really shot from the hip with certain things, but it's like, you know what? Like I am confident enough in myself, and I'm smart. I will figure it out. Right. So that's kind of the mentality of like, you know what? Let's just do it. Let's tell a cool story. And I think if we chase that a little bit more and we understand that life is truly short, I think we're going to be much better for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I relate to that 100%. I was pretty hesitant to talk about, or I guess just to acknowledge death. And I mean, for me and my dad, I don't have a relationship with him. I lost contact with him. The last I heard with him was, or heard from him, we had a on again, off again type relationship my whole life. And we were in communication. I asked him if he wanted to meet my daughter, and I never heard back. And she's 6. She just turned 6 in April. So there's this part of me that's like, oh, well, maybe he's still around and maybe he'll come back. But I just didn't have that relationship with him. So it's this weird, like, uncertainty thing. But yeah, I'm glad for you that you had a relationship with your dad and it was very impactful and meant a lot to you. And yeah, that makes me happy knowing that you had a good relationship with him and he was an impactful part for your life. And then you're talking about shooting from the hip with your wife, moving to Texas, doing big things, kind of just figuring it out. I relate to that as well. I jumped into the ultra marathon scene not knowing a clue of
Mhm.
anything. And my friends asked if I wanted to do a 50 miler in North Texas. And I knew what they were and I thought it was nuts. Didn't make any sense to me at all. But I instantly, without hesitation, said yes. And just really for the first time, this was a few years ago, but it was at that time I really understood what it was like to stay committed to an audacious goal and really just embrace the journey of it all. The process is what I really started to appreciate. And what I came to appreciate the most was knowing, like, when the race day comes, you stand at the line, you have no idea what's coming. The race will throw anything and everything at you, but when we stick to the process, like, that's what I appreciate. That's what I'm grateful for, is that all the times I wanted to say no, or all the excuses that I made that I wanted to hold on to, like the excuses that I had that I thought would be valid, like not showing up, not giving 110%, not giving it my best effort, just kind of disregarding them and knowing, like, well, I'm not dead and I can keep going and I can see it through. The reward at the other end has always been worth it to me. So would you say that from like that initial hesitation, I'm guessing there was some hesitation when you and your wife were elsewhere before you moved to Texas. Was there some hesitation and uncertainty in that moment?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like, we got no idea what we're getting ourselves into, but let's just let's trust ourselves and we'll figure it out. Right. I think the three, I forget where I learned this or where I read it, but it's just asking the three questions. It's like, what is the upside? What is the downside? And can I live with the downside? And you really think on those things and you ask that third question. And if it's, you can live with the downside, execute, right? We'll figure it out, right? It's a reversible decision. So I think thinking from that perspective with any kind of, like you said, audacious goal or different target, it's like, you know what, let's just do it. Because I know if I were to stay around and just kind of go through the motions, check in, check out, you know, that type of mentality, I know years from now, I would have probably regretted it, right? I can't obviously say that for certain, but I 99% chance I would have looked back and been like, damn, I wish we would have just done it. And I didn't want to live with that. So my wife didn't either. So we were like, all right, let's just do it. We said, and don't just like blindly jump off of a cliff. If you're thinking about those things, like think it through and say, okay, like we've had a ton of different backup plans and like, okay, well, if this, then this, and we have a bunch of different strategies in line. And making sure we're setting ourselves up for success. But that's the biggest thing. Those three questions kind of did it for me, to be honest.
Yeah, that's good. That's very healthy. And I think that we can take a lot from that. Because people that listen to this podcast, we have big goals. We have audacious goals.
I love it.
And for me, I've also learned, I think if I was talking to you before, like if I was talking to you a few years ago, I may have thought twice about some of the things that I pursued, because at the initial stages of me choosing to go into this ultra realm, I was pretty lost. Not pretty lost. I was very lost, and I didn't know what I was doing with my life. Was getting a divorce, and now I'm in Texas without my family, and I don't know what to do. So I figured if I can like survive by running these ultras, then maybe I can survive the challenges of going through this divorce and survive this next season. But the reality of it is I'm still paying off credit cards for those choices that I made. And I guess my recommendation is that whoever's listening, you actually think about those three questions that Justin brought up and do some really deep thinking before you commit to whatever goal you have. If we can't live with, did you say the negative?
The negative or the downside.
Yeah. Then maybe it's a goal that I wouldn't eliminate, but maybe, and something that my mom mentioned, she probably doesn't even remember, but she mentioned something to me a few years ago. She was talking about setting goals and thinking of it like it's like this kitchen analogy, like what's on the stove, like what's hot, what's ready, what's here and now, or can that be put in the fridge? Does it have a little bit of time before it goes bad? Or is this something that you can put in the freezer? You still have it, but it's essentially like on this reserve. So for me, I'm just going to give a tangible example so people understand what I'm talking about. And it's not just like me just saying things without, some context. I must have been running ultras in Texas for at least a year and a half, maybe more. But I just swiped my credit card. And to this day, it's embarrassing to recognize and to acknowledge, but it's just I just wanted to be ignorant. I didn't even pay any attention to the interest rate for the credit cards. And some of them are like 20%. Yeah. So I successfully put $60,000 on multiple credit cards because I was trying to chase goals, because I was trying to find me. I thought that if I run these big races and I cross the finish line, then I'm going to find out who I am and find out how strong I am. But what I didn't recognize is that we're already given that blessing every day. We're given the blessing every day to find out our true character through chosen adversity. And I like that I mentioned chosen adversity, because if we choose adversity, I believe that's when our character is presented to us, because we can either choose adversity and find out how strong we are, or we can just find out as life unfolds naturally, because life is filled with adversity. And it would be really unfortunate for us to be in a moment of adversity that we weren't prepared for and to completely crumble because we weren't prepared. But I guess my recommendation, just because this is what's on my mind based off what we're talking about, is if you have audacious goals, I don't want anyone to get rid of them, but maybe figure out when the right time is to pursue that. Because I'm a few years past these ultras and I'm still paying off those credit cards. Amazing experiences, but the reality of it, what I'm left with, I'm still paying for it. So I don't know, that's just a thought. It can be controversial and debatable, which is good. It's a good conversation, but that's just kind of what I'm thinking about. So with your coaching business and the services that you provide for tactical athletes, can you just walk us through like the onboarding process? Like, who exactly are you looking for? And then how do you want to help them be a better version of themselves?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think the most important thing that I kind of look for, which I think is a differentiator, I want to know like those uncomfortable things, like who do you want to become, right? I don't necessarily like, yes, the X's and O's, the 8 reps versus 10 reps and the time trials, and should I do this for my runs or should I do this? That stuff is extremely important, but I think we need to treat it so much bigger than that. So I want to know about your core values, your philosophies as a person, your traits, what makes you tick. Like those are the things that I want to know. And I want to try to answer the question of like, who do you want to become in the process? Because again, those are the things that I think can't be taken away from you, right? PRs, different things like that, they might. So I think that's very important. It's like, who do you want to become? Another one is like, what does your potential worst day look like? Right. Mm-hmm. And that, whether it's in uniform, whether you're a police officer, firefighter, military, right? We could have a pretty bad worst day, right? That could be somebody else's worst day, or it could be yours. So what does that potential day look like? As well as what are your specific goals? So now we have those things, and it's like, okay, now we have those things we have where you are and where you want to go. Now we're going to fill that gap. So I think that is very important to do the things that you suck at, or do the things that you've been avoiding. Where, in my experience, many people love strength training. Not many people love conditioning. And it's like, well, I guess fortunately and unfortunately, we're going to be prioritizing conditioning, and we'll do some of the other stuff. But I think that stuff's very important, as well as I call them daily standards or non-negotiables, where it's like, we are going to reverse engineer 3 things that you are going to do every single day, right? It is not saying that these need to be, you're moving mountains with these things, but it is like, what 3 things before your head hits the pillow are you going to do, regardless of the chaos, regardless of your schedule, regardless of your responsibilities? It could be a step goal. It could be something with nutrition. It could be 3 things you're grateful for, right? Those different types of things that takes up 5 minutes maybe, but that's how we build self-efficacy and confidence. So again, we're trying to get after things that, in my opinion, is leadership, right? And then the byproduct is the training stuff. The byproduct is the strength PRs, the time trials, the max out on PT tests, those different types of things. But to be honest, that's not the target. The target is who you want to become. And I think that's the most important aspect. So from there, we figure that out. And then it's like, okay, who you need to become, what your potential worst day looks like. Now we're going to test those things that you could need. So do we need some mental endurance? Is that what we're testing here? Are we going to give you a little gut check? Do we need conditioning? Do we need strength, power? What do we need? Let's reverse engineer some tests and figure out your starting point. Right. From there, we're going to find your leverage point and build from there. And that's going to be essentially your system there.
That's awesome. Yeah. Earlier this week, I was thinking maybe it was just yesterday, which I'm glad I came to this realization because I think it can add value to this conversation. I used to have different goals for running. Initially I started and I sucked super bad. My legs didn't know how to do leg things, and my body it was just a hot mess. And then after time, I started developing those leg muscles that you need, and everything started kind of getting into sync. And I thought that I was learning something. I was like, oh, I feel like I'm getting good at this. And it's funny because now I'm just in a state of what I call reckoning on a holistic scale. Background, my son is now 2 months old. My wife and I got married in December. We just moved a month ago. And it seems like on a few different levels, on a physical, mental, emotional level, it seems like my world is kind of crumbling. It seems like my foundation is not solidified, and it seems like I'm starting over. Now, on one hand, I can approach this with, or I can respond to this with like a boo-hoo, I feel bad for me response. Like, oh, the world is against me and this is what's happening and now I'm just doomed. Or, and that's hard for me to say because like that's not in my, I have to like act and say those words because it's just not in my character. But I feel for people who could be in that state where they feel like their world is just caving in around them and on them, and they feel this pressure. Because I feel on an emotional level, I feel this heavy burden. I feel this pressure. On a physical level, it takes me over an hour for my body to start warming up on a run, for my legs to start operating the way they should be. For example, 2 days ago, I went on a trail run, and by the time I got 2 miles in, I'd stopped 3 times. I sat on the ground. I sat on a downed log. I sat on a rock. And I just, head between my legs, I'm just like feeling so down and just exhausted, like physically exhausted and depleted. My heart rate is super elevated, like 170s, just walking in a straight line. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? Like, to the point I'm going to go get my blood tested. I feel like something could be going on. So I'm going to check that box. But not only from that aspect, but from like an emotional, even mental standpoint, I'm just feeling pressure and overwhelm and burden. But what I'm grateful for is sticking to this process of staying on a training plan to complete a 100-kilometer run that I'm doing in mid-June. So I started this plan just a few weeks ago. I started a few weeks into it because I got on the plan late, but just got right into it and giving it all I have with what I have to work with. And not sometimes, right now for me, it's very sloppy. Does not look good. It doesn't feel good physically in the beginning, but when I stick to it and I stick to the process, I'm always grateful. I always find clarity at the end. And what I've learned about myself is I get stronger with time. Every time I've gotten like, it's like getting out of bed, like all the aches and pains. I'm like, oh man, 34. Like my lower back, I don't know what I'm doing today, but just getting out of bed, it's painful. So when I'm running on trails or I'm running anywhere, it takes time for my body to adapt, which is, it's comical, but also frustrating. But here I am. So I'm saying all this because I think it can relate to a lot of people. Like, you know, we wake up and we have ambition. We want to get after it. We want to do things, but sometimes we don't have it in the tank. But my encouragement is like, give it what you have, you know, give your best effort with what you have to work with. It doesn't have to look good. It doesn't have to feel good. But I'm very confident that if we stick to the process and we find gratitude in the process, we're going to have a renewed spirit. We're going to feel a little more confident. And I can promise you that, you know, I didn't want to get up when I got up today. I didn't want to commit to the plan today. But Justin, I wanted to sit with you and have an engaged one-on-one healthy conversation. And I knew in my core that it wouldn't be healthy if I didn't give my best effort. Like I wouldn't be able to sit with you and give you the best version of me if I listened to the excuses that said, you can't do that. You're better just not even trying. Because the world's not going to know if you don't stick to a plan. But I would know that. And my wife would know that. My family would know that. So I just want to encourage people, like, your pursuit of progress, it doesn't have to look good to others watching. It's not a spectator sport. It can be an invitation for you to go one-on-one with yourself and experience gratitude, find a stronger version of yourself. And for me, in running, to finally get to what I started talking about was this realization this week that what I appreciate so much about running is that it exposes all of my weaknesses. And when I initially had that thought, I thought it was a period at the end. I thought it was running exposes all of my weaknesses, period. And then fast forward to today, I'm a few hours into the run. I'm making excuses, but then I keep going. I keep going, and I keep going. And I feel stronger. And the pain that I experienced in the beginning has subsided now. I don't experience that anymore. I'm experiencing this newfound strength. But what I found is that, yes, running exposes my weaknesses, ... to reveal my greatest strengths. And I hope that whoever is listening can do some deep reflection. And kind of what I'm getting from what you're saying, Justin, is like, I guess I'll just speak for me because I don't want to get it wrong. But what I train to is adversity. And I acknowledge that adversity is inevitable. It's going to be paramount in our lives. If we haven't experienced true adversity, I promise you it will. It's fundamental in life. But how I want to train to adversity is identifying something that would make me feel uncomfortable and exposing myself to that discomfort for a time, because it's in those moments of discomfort where my character is revealed to me. And what I want to identify is, how do I respond to adversity? I think that equation is how we identify our character. Our true character is in the face of adversity. So if we can choose to be uncomfortable for a moment, maybe it's taking a freezing cold shower when you don't want to. If there's a moment of composure and how we respond to that, then we win. And we gain confidence, and we can go live our lives with a little more confidence, knowing that if we're uncomfortable in the day, we can go back and fall back on, well, when I was uncomfortable, this is how I responded. And so I can respond more healthy to this moment of adversity that I'm experiencing real time.
Yeah, I love that. That reminds me of one of my favorite books is called Comfort Crisis by
Oh,
Mike
yeah.
Leister. Or have you read that? And
Yeah.
it's like, are you familiar? If you've read it, I'm sure you are. But Misogi's, like, I think that again, if the listeners are not familiar with Misogi's, there's two rules. One is don't die, and the second one is do something that you have a 50-50 shot of completing. So it's like, do something, and again, that's all relative. So that is not saying like, oh, I'm gonna go run a 100-mile race, but it's like, do something that you are scared of, that you are like uncomfortable with. And like I always say, we want to stress test in training before we are tested in the real world. So if that means, and I always try to have my clients put something on the schedule, and that could be, I had somebody do a public speaking event. They didn't like public speaking, and it's like, okay, cool, that's what we're going to do. They want to improve their PT test time. It's like, okay, cool, we're going to sign up for a 5K, 10Ks. There's been a ton of like Spartan races, things like that. So it just needs to be relatively hard. And I think we all know there is something in our hearts. It's like, damn, that would be really cool if I could accomplish that. And I would say, hey, discipline with a deadline. Let's put something on the schedule, sign up for it. And now we got to get to work. Let's reverse engineer it now. But I think that is super important. And I always recommend trying to do that once to twice per year of like, hey, I'm going to sign up for this race. Hey, I'm going to do X thing on X date. And if I don't train and prepare for it, it could get ugly. But it's also a great forcing mechanism to say, hey, I need to hold my standards. I'm going to do this on that date. I want to show up ready.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I love it. That book, Comfort Crisis, changed my life. There was a chaplain
awesome.
that came to our office a few years ago. And before she left, she wrote down on a sticky note, like, some books you should read, handed it to me. Number one was Comfort Crisis. I started it, did not put it down.
Yeah.
So it's a game-changing, it offers very healthy, for me, a very healthy perspective shift. But I started to recognize that in my own life because I had been running ultras at that time. And what I noticed for me, because you were talking about choosing things that are relatively hard, and I think that's very important for people to understand. And that's another reason why I don't want anyone to feel pressured to compare their pursuit of progress to anyone else around them, because it's deeply personal and it's our own journey, and this trail of life is designed specifically for us, not for others. And I don't mean that in a rude way. I want us to be a community. I want us to support each other, but there's times on the trail that we are by ourselves for a time. And I also believe that community, there's always someone at an aid station waiting, but we have that time with ourselves to continue on this single track trail, if that makes sense. Anyways, so I'd been running for quite some time, but I started noticing that I would get to about 30 days, and I'm like, I got this itch. Like I gotta go do something really challenging or I'm going to go nuts. But that's just how I was conditioning myself at that time. So yeah, I think in the book they talk, maybe, I don't want to get it wrong, but encouraging people to pick something that is essentially seemingly insurmountable and demonstrating a willingness to pursue that, which really is the core of the word audacious, is to demonstrate a willingness to take on surprisingly bold risks. And there's this really awesome thing that happens to our brain when we set an audacious goal, we do the work, and we show up and we achieve that goal. And if we shift the words and we change the verbiage and we just call it survive. When we do something that is so challenging and we survive, and we're still alive, and we're still breathing at the end. I listened to this on the Huberman Lab. He talked about what's called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. Essentially, I'm paraphrasing. I'm going to do my best. I may get it a little bit wrong. But to me, it's this critical piece in our brain that expands. Essentially, it's like your will to survive. It expands. But over time, that can subside. It can dissipate, or it can, I don't know the right word. It can, lower. It shrinks. There we go. So that's why I think everyone's pace is a little bit different. That's why everyone, once you get into this rhythm or routine, I don't know. Instead of 30 days, my timeline got a lot shorter. And I think it was impacted and influenced by what was going on around me in that season of my life. It was trying to figure out, how am I going to pay my bills, pay for a mortgage by myself, and child support, and how am I going to pay for all these trips back and forth to see my child every few months? I just was freaking out about money at that time. So I think that's why my timeline for doing really hard things was so much shorter, because I needed reps to know that I can survive. I needed that piece in my brain, that anterior mid-cingulate cortex to stay expanded, I think. So yeah, that little, I guess, knowledge nugget, that meant a lot to me. When I heard about that, I was like, that makes sense. That makes sense to me. And it's just like taking in all this information that people have already put out there and really just letting it form into reality. It's just made a lot of sense to me. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And for those of you listening, go check out the Comfort Crisis. Give that bad boy a read.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. I send it to, that's usually the first book that I send to all my clients, because I know how impactful it is for me, or was for me. And yeah, everybody, I've never gotten bad feedback on it. So
Yeah.
Definitely recommend that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, I would challenge you, like something that I always tell a lot of my clients is, you were talking about doing something hard, always on the schedule. And I've found for myself, as well as other folks who do have that competitive nature and competitive itch, I would say, like, well, what else can we do, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be physical, but what, maybe mentally or spiritually is kind of scary for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
How can we reverse engineer that and tackle that? I think it's super important. And I think a lot of us, this is kind of what I was going through in the past, where it was like, all right, physically beat the crap out of myself. That's how I'm going to feel productive. But then you start to think like something is like, when is the last time that I've sat in silence or walked without a distraction? Right. Like that's, to me, that's pretty hard. It's uncomfortable. Right. So now I'm going to use that competitive edge and do something like that. Maybe like you had mentioned, a cold shower, right? Those things seem like too easy, too simple. And I'm like, well, then do it, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's do it then. Do it every day, right? And so little things like that, I think are super powerful. And it kind of helps the reframe of like, okay, I can still keep that competitive integrity, right? I can still do hard things, but we might just need to adjust so we don't physically beat ourselves down.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very helpful. Yeah, I try to break down my pursuit of. I'm trying to be careful with my words because I'm a human. I think different. You know, a few years ago, I would talk about this pursuit of progress, and now I'm like, well, am I trying to progress, or am I just trying to be healthy? And right now in my life, I just want to be healthy. So how do I do that? And I appreciate what you said, because I try to break it down into like pillars of holistic strength, like physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And physically, we've already talked about it, you know, like I'm on a plane, I'm trying to do things, trying to prepare. And by the way, I'm on a training plan, not because I'm trying to set a PR for a 100K, because when I stand the line, I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen. And I'm also not even promised tomorrow. I don't even know if it's coming. But what I appreciate is the pursuit and what's the word? Starts with a P. Process. So, but on a mental level, I think for me the mental gain is really, it's throughout the physical pursuit for me, and everyone could be a little bit different. You know, gaining that confidence, like choosing to keep going when everything in me is telling me I don't have to. So it means a lot to me mentally when I can keep going when I really don't want to. And how that helps me, like, for example, if I'm inside the house, I'm sitting on the couch and I don't know, sometimes I just get into a low spot. I just get filled with like, I don't know, dark thoughts or something, or I feel this overwhelm with needing to like show up as a dad and a husband forever. Like that idea sometimes creeps into my mind because, like I was saying earlier, I didn't have a very healthy relationship with my dad. He left. So for me mentally, I'm like, well, your dad left. Why wouldn't you leave your family? Why wouldn't you leave your kid? So in those moments, I'm like, mentally and emotionally, I'm like, well, I chose to endure momentary suffering by continuing to run when I didn't want to. How does that translate into this situation that I'm going through right now? I'm feeling this overwhelm and this uncertainty with family. Well, I'm choosing my family. I love my family. I love my wife. I love my child. And I never think like, oh, well, I would leave my family because blah, blah, blah. It's like, do you really think that you can be a healthy husband, healthy dad forever? I think it's just like that idea of forever or enduring that really gets to me sometimes. So I just recognize, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be overwhelmed by the future because the future will never exist in the present. Tomorrow will never exist today. So I'm just going to pause for a moment. I'm going to put my hands on the table. I'm going to take a breath. I'm going to recognize my gratitudes right now, or recognize reality. This is what's happening. I'm here, I'm with my family. I have a healthy relationship with my family. I'm just going to acknowledge that I had a thought while also recognizing the reality of my circumstances. And then with that, experience gratitude. But it's also kind of leveraging, like, you showed up for yourself today, and you're going to continue to show up for your family because you've already demonstrated that you're still with family. So it's kind of a long, extrapolated explanation as like a little bit about what's going on inside my head, these little internal battles that I face on a very regular basis, heavily influenced from my past to my childhood and other experiences in my life. I was talking about my divorce too. Like, that's also a major contributing factor. So yeah, I appreciate the physical pursuit because I can leverage mental and emotional gain whenever I'm going through adversity in life. And then spiritually, I love what, like earlier when I was talking about running, exposing my weaknesses. I was on a run 2 days ago, the one I was telling you about where I was just really, really not having it. I started in the first 100 meters. I was like, dang, I feel good. And then after that 100 meters, no, not at all. But I got to the point within those first 2 miles where I was telling you I was like on the ground and like on a log and a rock, and I just like turned my music off, took my headphones out, my ears, put them away. And that was a big move for me. That really made me feel uncomfortable because I've gotten comfortable with listening to music when I am running or doing something uncomfortable. Music makes me feel comfortable. It comforts me. So I got rid of it because I wanted to leverage this exposure of vulnerability. Put my headphones away and I'm just still, which also made me uncomfortable because I had a goal. I needed to be moving. That's what I was doing out there. I didn't go out there to just stand. But I'm so grateful that I did, because when I stopped and I got rid of my distractions and I just was still, I was listening to the birds, listening to the wind in the trees. I was looking at beautiful nature that I was surrounded by. And I just felt like God was telling me, or I felt like God was, like in the Bible says, he will lead you to green pastures. Like, he will make you lie down in green pastures. And that's what was happening. Like, I got to a point where I just couldn't keep going, and I stopped, and I just hit the reset with everything that I thought I needed to do with my life. And I was so grateful for that moment with God, because it felt like he was making me lie down. And in that moment, I experienced immense gratitude. And I was like, yeah, this pursuit in life is not all about looking good, sounding good, and you know, hitting PRs. Like, the beauty in life is sometimes just sitting still and looking around and experiencing the beauty that's already around us. And we don't have to chase it. It's already there. And so that's what I experienced in that moment. It was, you mentioned the word reframe, and that was definitely what was happening in that moment. So on a holistic level, I'm definitely going through quite a few shifts, because it's new, to not feel as capable and to not be as capable. But there's other things in life that matter so much too. And I also have the confidence knowing that, with the adversity that's coming, I still feel confident that I'll be able to handle it. Hope that made sense.
Yeah, it definitely did. And I mean, getting back to the training stuff and doing uncomfortable things, I personally think that is the point of ultras and different things like that, where the amount of knowledge that you get about yourself that's condensed into however long that you were going is absolutely insane. So again, like if you were in a race or at a struggle point, right? If you've ever done a long race, it's like, okay, there's going to be miles where you feel invincible and you're just floating. And then there's other miles where your feet are just cinder blocks and nothing's going your way, or an injury's popping up, or your calf is flaring up. That's what happened to me. But you have these good miles and bad miles. But again, it's all about just segmenting how you can break this up, how you can keep going. If that is like what I've done is like, okay, I have 10 miles to go and I am absolutely smoked. My Achilles is hurting. Like I'm just in a bad spot. But okay, let's break that down into 5Ks. Let's break it down into a mile. Oh, wait, let's break it down into 800s or 400s. I remember running those in training, right? So you just kind of segment and piece together and not focus on the necessarily like the end goal, but it's just the next step.
Mm-hmm.
So that skill is 100% applicable to everything that we're doing in life, where if you do have that bad thought or that uncomfortable thought, it's like, okay, like how could I, piece this together? How could I shake this? How could I endure it to maybe get through this valley so I can see another peak? Right. I think that should always be the target. And again, any kind of ultra or very hard thing, Musogi, like we've been talking about, I think is the absolute perfect recipe to be able to do that in the real world.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I like the word endure because I think it's after suffering has started. I think that suffering is something that humanity can relate to. I believe that we've all suffered in some way, and if we do some reflection, we can recognize how we've suffered. But to find our character, it's, I believe, our willingness to endure that suffering so that we can recognize our identity, our character. And for me, I think I like to say that, I don't know if I really said it publicly, but it's something that I feel internally is that my character is always forged in the last mile. And I hope that people hear that and they take that and they run with it, because it doesn't matter the distance. It doesn't matter like how I'm trying to be careful with how I say this. I don't want us to compare our efforts, but if we recognize like what we're enduring, our character is revealed, at the end, but we have to endure. Yeah. We have to endure to find our character. And if we don't decide to do that, we may not know how strong we've always been. And maybe that's the consequence. There's always a time where it's appropriate to stop doing something. In the ultra world, we talk about DNF, do not finish. I've DNF'd multiple times. And at first there was immense shame and I didn't want to talk about it with anybody. But the reality is it's, there was so many lessons to learn. There was a 100-miler that I was doing. I was having a really good day. I got 65 miles into a race. I looked at the parking lot and I turned back. I saw my car in the parking lot and I ran to it. And I went and told the race director that I quit. And they're like, wait, what? Are you sure? I was like, yeah. I just quit. It was in a moment of weakness. At the time, I rationalized and I was like, oh, well, I'm behind the cutoff time, so I'm not even going to make it. Yes, I'm crawling on all fours through this mudslide and I'm way behind the time. But once I quit and I got to my car, whatever discomfort that I was in, I didn't even experience it anymore. And instead of being really shameful, I just learned from it. And the lesson learned was, there were miles with my name on it that I didn't commit to because I just wanted to be comfortable. And I'm not going to beat myself up over, and I hope that people don't beat themselves up for not achieving a specific goal. Like, it's okay. It's okay to be human. If we can learn from failure and we can fail forward, then I think we win. Yeah. Well, this has been awesome, man. I appreciate you taking the time to have a conversation with me. It's been free flowing like I wanted. I didn't want to keep it rigid and robotic because that's not fun. But this was organic and it was raw and real like I was hoping for. So, yeah, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to just have a conversation. And I think that a lot of people who listen to this are going to find value from it, and they could take it and continue the good fight to find themselves at the other end of adversity. But I do have a question for you. Actually, I have two questions for you. The first one is if you can think of words of encouragement. So the message that you have. And just imagine people are listening to this and they could be going through a really tough time. Maybe they don't know how to continue moving forward. So if you can offer some words of encouragement for that individual, what would you say to them?
I would say something that was passed on to me, and it was very, very impactful. But one of my coaches a while ago asked me a question, and he said, "What do you think comes first, courage or confidence?" And I thought that was so. And he was like, "Oh," I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I get what you're getting at here." But it's ultimately just having the courage to get out of the rut, get out of your comfort zone, and keep pushing. Right? I think that's the biggest thing. And then confidence will come. The positive thoughts will come. But like we've been talking about, it's all about the endurance. So throughout that path, I also think it's important to, throughout the highs and lows, recognizing all the cool shit that you're actually doing. I know that many type A folks are just like, okay, next thing. What is the next accomplishment? What is the next target? Cool, hit that. Let's keep it moving. But I think a lot of the times we need to measure backwards as well, not rest on it, but it's okay to take a knee every once in a while and be like, holy crap, that was pretty cool. Like, I'm proud of myself for that. Now we can keep going. But I think that is the fuel that we need, looking back every once in a while and be like, damn, I'm accomplishing some really cool shit, and I want to keep my foot on the gas. I don't want to rest on it. But again, using that as fuel to keep going and getting you out of ruts, I think is very important.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. The courage and confidence resonates a lot with me because most of the time whenever I stand in the line for an ultra, there's a lot of fear.
Absolutely.
A lot of fear, and I don't have any confidence, but something shifted in me. And I told myself, I'm like, well, I'm not confident in my ability to complete this effort because I've never done it before. And that fear, I believe, was valid. And so what I ended up doing was just having this paradigm shift mentally, which was to match your fear with courage. Like we can stand the line to whatever it is we're pursuing with all fear. And I think that's okay. But my recommendation is that you match your fear with courage and recognize that we're standing the line to do something that other people wouldn't want to do. And it's not to shame them, but it's just an opportunity to recognize what we're showing up for and pursuing those audacious goals. And that's okay. It's okay to be afraid. And it's also okay to have courage. And then, like you were saying, the confidence is forged. It's found at the other end of that suffering while enduring. So that's really awesome. And then, the second thing you were talking about, that resonates a lot with me too. When we were first talking a few weeks ago, I was saying that I I do struggle to acknowledge the things I've done in my life, the goals that I've achieved, because it happened. It's done. But I do find confidence in low points where I can pause for a moment and reflect on what I stood the line for and what I achieved. And that gives people hope. So I think it's important to recognize what we've done, what we've achieved, and share those achievements with humility to someone who's struggling. Because, like I said, suffering resonates with all of us. But as people, I think what we're trying to do, we're just trying to endure. We're just trying to endure this beautiful thing called life, and we're trying to figure out who we are, and we're capable. We absolutely are capable. But I like to reflect on what I call confidence tokens. Like I keep these little confidence tokens, kind of like Goggins in his cookie jar mentality. Whatever hard thing I've done is just a little token. Put that in my pocket and just keep it for a rainy day.
Yeah, I remember even with you, I remember you talking about how you don't know where your medals are, and I would challenge you. I'm like, hey, we got to find those, right? That is not something that in my eyes, we should be posting about every day and those types of things. But even for you internally, right? If you were to have a wall that's like not on camera or whatever, now you have all your accomplishments there, and then what I usually do is leave a blank space. Right. And it's like, oh, now we can look at that. And it's like, that's the shit that I know that I'm capable of. So even with the 100K that's coming up for you, it's like, okay, I've been here before. Now I'm going to put that thing right here, and I'm going to make up some more space. So having that wall of fame, if you will, I think is super powerful. And again, it's not in like an egotistical manner of like, look at me, look how great I am. That is not at all what it's about. But again, internally, like I think everybody, and I challenge my clients to make your little like wall of fame, right? Put stuff, put accomplishments, put things that you're proud of. And then that's going to be the driving force keeping you going. But again, we're not going to rest on it and be like, all right, I'm done. I'm going to like, that's all I'm doing. It's like, hey, leave a blank space, right? Leave some room for your next medal, and then your next one and your next one. But that's a great way to be able to look backwards and be like, hey, I know that I'm more than capable of getting this done. And there's the proof.
I like that. I love that, actually. It's awesome. All right, brother, last question for you. No wrong answer. This is just me being curious. But when you hear phase one, in your core, what does that mean to you?
I would say that's the foundation, right? It's where, in my opinion, people should start and understand that it's never finished. So to me, it's not necessarily about the basics. Like everybody says that, oh, like stick to the basics, which is 100% the truth. But I'm thinking bigger, like what are your foundational principles, like we've talked about before? What are your core values? What are your daily standards that you hold on a day-to-day basis, right? Who is your teammates? Like who's in your corner? Who's in the trenches with you? Right. And you have those things, and that is the foundation for everything else. But realizing if you don't have phase one in order, or if you never really sit with yourself and understand what those things actually are, and you can't answer those with confidence, I would venture to guess that you're going to be just running down a dead end. So that's what phase one is. It's like, okay, who am I? Who do I need to become? And let's keep answering that.
That's awesome. Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Yeah, again, I know I've said it many times throughout this conversation, but thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule to have conversation. And I hope that for those listening, this added some value to your life and gave you a little bit of encouragement to get out there and keep on going and, yeah, experience gratitude along the way. It's a beautiful journey, this wild thing called life. But for those listening and they want to get connected to you, how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, so it's Everyday Responders on Instagram, and then everydayresponders.com, where I put out a ton of free content, put out some articles. I have a podcast as well, which hopefully I'm going to have you on soon. If you're still down, we'll definitely have you on there. But yeah, if anybody ever needs anything or needs to bounce any ideas off of me, I'm always open. I love having these conversations, but definitely grateful to be here. Grateful to have grateful for you to have me on, and dude, loving the mission. And I looked at some of the gear. I'm gonna be purchasing some. Love
Oh, great.
love the look. So
Thank you.
yeah, I appreciate what you're doing and your mission for sure.
I appreciate you very much. What's your podcast so people can listen to that?
Everyday responders.
Okay, awesome, cool.
Yeah.
On Spotify.
Yeah, we're on Spotify, Apple, all like the main streaming. So I do usually like single topic episodes, Q&As, as well as have some guests on. So
Okay,
some guests that are in the trenches with us. So it's always a good time.
awesome, fantastic, brother. I appreciate you. And for those of you tuning in, thank you for taking this time to listen. And we love you. Until next time, peace, love, keep it real.